In this video, we're taking a look at some of the best old movies with Dolby Atmos soundtracks, and you might even be surprised to see which ones made the list. So let's jump right into it.
Hello?
You don't have to wait long for this one to make an impact. As soon as the opening credits start, this soundtrack fills the room with creepy sound effects placed above and behind the listener. When Milla Jovovich's character first steps outside the mansion, the wind and the rustling from the leaves create an immersive feel, taking full advantage of Atmos' capabilities. The soundtrack also does an excellent job creating a sense of space to give the illusion that you're in a much bigger environment than your listening area. If you haven't been that impressed with Atmos' height capability, you need to check this out on 4K. You won't be disappointed.
Hey, it's basketball. Where?
Oh, now what? Sweetheart.
What?
Thought you were gonna get better seats this year.
Honey, will you just let me watch the game? Barkley's killing us.
Someone's killing someone. Let me see. There, that's him, the killer.
You don't usually think of movies like this having or even needing a great soundtrack, but the team at Warner Brothers really put some effort into this Atmos upgrade. This soundtrack consistently uses overhead for both immersion and for moving objects through the listening area. In one of the earlier scenes, a spaceship flies over a baseball stadium, and you can clearly hear it above you. There's also extensive overhead and surround usage during the scenes in Madison Square Garden, with lots of crowd noise and the PA announcer coming from all over to fully immerse the listener. So if you're in the mood for something lighthearted, grab this one off the shelf.
What's going on? Shots fired, sir! Family, what about my family? Handling it, sir!
Ramstein Tower, this is Air Force One.
We are code red. Shots fired on board. Request emergency assistance. ETA 15 minutes.
Alice, get back!
Daddy! Alice! Alice!
If you want a soundtrack that matches the intensity of the story, grab a copy of Air Force One on 4K. But be prepared, this is a loud and aggressive soundtrack. When the bullets start flying, you're going to feel like you're right in the middle of the action. There's a lot of moving objects too, like helicopters and jets, and there's a lot of output from the overhead channels during these scenes. This is really one of the few traditional action thrillers you can find in Dolby Atmos, and everybody should have a copy of this one in their collection.
It's locked. We're gonna get you out of here, I promise. I promise. Come on, Angela. Hurry. Carla?
This is a great example of how Atmos can turn even a critically panned 90s slasher movie into an enjoyable viewing experience. Even if you're not a fan of the genre, you need to listen to this soundtrack. Sony brings it all with this one. There are multiple scenes with overhead effects. Everything from rain, thunder, a crowded nightclub, and the lush environments of the Bahamas are truly immersive. If you enjoy quality audio, this is definitely worth picking up on 4K.
The Amazing Spider-Man! Come on, move on, kid.
A superhero movie needs a great soundtrack, and Sony's upgrade of the first Spider-Man movie leaves the old 5.1 mix in the dust. This soundtrack makes excellent use of Atmos' overhead capability to give you a three-dimensional feeling. Sound effects like flying debris or Spider-Man's webbing now appear to be moving through the listening area instead of just from speaker to speaker. You also get a lot of action coming from above, like breaking glass from crumbling buildings and the Green Goblin's glider as it passes overhead. During the scene in the wrestling arena, you can hear the crowd surrounding you while the cage comes down on top of the listening area. It's a great soundtrack, so the next time you watch this one, make sure it's in Atmos.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I had no choice. They arrived right before you did. I'm sorry.
A lot of Star Wars fans are all about original intent, but for those of us who aren't as obsessive and enjoy something new, this is the perfect way to experience what most consider is the best movie in the franchise. And this soundtrack is fully immersive. Check out the attack on Hoth and you'll be treated to all kinds of effects and ambient sound appearing above, behind, and moving throughout the soundstage. Laser blasts and aircraft also feel like they're inside the listening area, and the iconic sound of the lightsabers take on a whole new dimension in Atmos. This is a must-own 4K, so definitely pick this one up if you haven't already.
By the time this is over, every one of you is gonna be face down on the floor, and I'm gonna moonwalk out of here. See, first, you're gonna help me out of my chair, and then I'm gonna leapfrog over you before I break his nose. And since my trusty lighter isn't working, I'm gonna do all of this with my hands tied behind my back.
If you want to have some fun with your Atmos setup, pick up a copy of Charlie's Angels on 4K. The opening scene is a standout, with all kinds of height and surround use. In another scene, a missile destroys a building, and the debris from the explosion rains down while a helicopter hovers above, taking full advantage of Atmos' height capabilities. And you can expect more of the same for the rest of the action sequences in the movie. This is a great soundtrack, and the kind of premium 4K release that everybody should have on their shelf.
I'm a biologist. I take radioactive samples and I study them.
That's great. Here's your sample. Study it.
What sample? You're standing in it.
This movie's always been a must-own for home theater enthusiasts, and Sony delivers with a killer Atmos soundtrack that has incredible height and surround presence. During one of the earlier scenes in the movie, Matthew Broderick's character collects worm samples as a helicopter appears overhead, and you can track it as it pans down to the front of the soundstage. And when Godzilla first arrives in the city, you can hear the rubble from buildings being destroyed raining down from above. And of course, this soundtrack has plenty of room-shaking bass. If you haven't already, you need to pick this one up on 4K.
It's gone.
Oh my God. Where's my truck?
This one is not for the faint of heart, with wind, thunder, rain coming from all over the soundstage. And during the more destructive scenes, you'll get the sense that you're actually in some of these environments, when effects like the debris from collapsed buildings sound like they're raining down on top of you. This is an intense soundtrack, and it's everything you'd want from a disaster movie, including bass that'll rattle the windows. If you really want that edge of your seat feeling, definitely pick this one up because it's awesome.
To destroy Batman, we must first turn him into what he hates the most. Namely us.
You mean frame him?
If there's one movie that deserves a perfect soundtrack, it's Batman Returns. It was the first movie to be released in Dolby Digital back in 1992, and now it's also available in Atmos. And it's an incredibly dynamic soundtrack, with lots of overhead and surround back effects. And it's totally immersive. Just check out one of the earlier scenes when the Penguin's crazy circus gang wreak havoc during the tree lighting ceremony. This scene is like a feast of everything on the Atmos menu. During the chaos, a clown fires his rifle into the air while the residents of Gotham flee for their lives. And a motorcycle moves behind you from the left side of the soundstage up to the front right until it disappears into the environment. It's just an amazing display of what Atmos has to offer, and it's one of the very best soundtracks out there. If you thought the original soundtrack was good, you need this on 4K. If you're interested in owning any one of these movies, check out the links in the description for the best deals.